welcome to the 5 Minute Career Hack Influential Women 4-part series. And at 5 Minute Career Hack, we really just want to use this month, Women's History Month, to showcase women and their influence that has been created in history, today, and in the future. So I am so excited and honored to have one of my favorite guests, someone who has been someone who's modeled excellence for me throughout my life and my career, Duana Love. So I'm excited for her to be joining us today. I'm not going to introduce Duana; she'll do that best herself. But I will tell you, you all are in for a treat today for someone who's had incredible influence not only in her industry, but in her life and as well as in her community. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Duana to tell us a little bit about herself and how she's built her personal and professional brand in her life, in her career journey.
All right. Well, hello, Candice. It's so good to see you. And I have to say thank you to this incredible group of women for including me on this influential conversation about Women's History Month. As you said, I'm Duana Love. I'm a professional engineer in Chicago, Illinois. I've been a professional engineer a little over 30 years, and I've been fortunate to work in the field of transportation. So you talk about passion and doing the things you love and influencing others. I've been fortunate to find a career that means a lot to me. I was an engineering student early on, but not decided on what type. And as I had an opportunity as a college student to study different engineering disciplines, I was able to learn about all of the ones that didn't move me. But when I studied civil engineering, learning it was actually about civil service. Civil engineers create the infrastructure, we help and maintain traffic conditions, expressways, and we help our loved ones, our families that commute on the highways and rail systems in our country make sure that they're safe and getting where they need to go. One of the things I love to share in terms of building a brand is I have been a professional that worked for the government for most of my career. Coming out of college, I was recruited by the state of Illinois. And in that role, joining the Illinois Department of Transportation, being one of the few minorities at that time, I won't date myself too much, but at that time, they were very intentional about using the staff that we were in terms of coming in as young professionals of different persuasions and backgrounds to use us to go out to high schools and have career days to introduce ourselves to students, because if I can do it, you can do it. It's always been a important assignment, whether it was work related or something I took on in my part-time and spare time, is to get in front of youth and let them see people like them, right? Anything is possible if you can see it. So I've always enjoyed science fairs, career fairs, being a judge, being a sponsor to help students get their ideas together and win. I'm a winner. I'm a tough competitor. And that's been one of the driving forces in my career. So I'm just really looking forward to this conversation with you today.
Yes, yes, and I love how you said anything is possible if you can see it. And I know that we've had incredible examples in history, of course, with the likes of. I've got my Maya Angelou on today. I was listening. I like to listen to Oprah and Michelle Obama, and I think it's so important that, like I said earlier, around modeling excellence and really
Yes,
showcasing that we have more influence than we even realize. And I was looking up. I'm a girl of definitions, so I said,
that's
let me
right.
pull up like that Webster definition of influence, and it was so powerful when I read it. It defined influence as the power or capacity of causing an effect in indirect and intangible ways. So I think you do incredible work, out there serving a community. But I think the other piece is that somebody sees you when you're doing it.
Absolutely.
Somebody sees what you're doing, just like we see the greats. I remember when I was in grade school and we had to dress up for Black History, and me, my mom, and I, we chose that I was going to dress up as Shirley Chisholm, and I had
Mm,
no idea, right, like the power that that was going to have over the trajectory of my career. But when I started to, get older and research on just exactly what her influence was, I was like, wow, I'm now in a position as well where one of her favorite terms was, or one of her coin terms was, if they don't give you a seat at the table, you pull up a chair. And even
absolutely.
that influence of me wearing my curly wig and my suit My mother drew a mole on my face, right? And so when I thought about like, okay, I'm in my career and I have
Yes,
a very unique seat at the table, I saw she modeled, right? Excellent Shirley Chisholm by being super courageous, right? And really showing us what excellence looked like and having an influence on the career. So when you think about that, tell me about a woman that has had a meaningful influence in your life or in your personal journey.
absolutely. And I just want to echo what you said, having a seat at the table. A lot of us saw the play Hamilton, want to be in the room where it happens. I think that is very infectious and it's very real. If I have to think about a woman who's been very influential to me, of course, we think of the historians like what you brought up and a lot of our champions from history. But I'm going to come a little forward and talk about just a real life person. You see, I'm wearing a t shirt that says, "When women support each other, incredible things happen." I have a personal champion, and her name is Tanya. I won't use her last name because I'm sure she'll see this, and I don't want her going crazy. But when you talk about supporting our community, supporting one another as women, I was fortunate to meet this woman, Tanya, when I was in college. And I already spoke a little bit about finding my career, but it was very intimidating, going to an engineering school, being one of the only Black or women of color, period, because, we get a lot of international students that come to the States to study engineering. But to be the only African American female in my graduating class at Bradley University, I was fortunate to have a woman find me. She was looking for engineering students, and I trickled to the top because I was one of the unique me in the class. And what this woman provided for me, while she's not an engineer, she was in HR and recruitment, but her own passion was to bring people of color to the industry. And she found me, plucked me out of the university, gave me my first summer job opportunity. And Candice, it was amazing because even in that first opportunity, while I was walking in my uncertainty, finishing 1 year engineering curriculum, she paired us in a program with high school students that were looking to do the same. So we all lived together and worked together, and they were learning what engineering studies look like. And me being what she called a veteran at that time because we had finished a year, I had opportunity to influence even someone just a year or two behind me to say, this is how it goes, this is what you need, and guess what? We can do this and succeed. Tanya has been a champion for me throughout my career and for my family. So as we moved in our industry, she continued to excel in a political space, in a diversity space, and she's always been a champion for me personally and for our industry. So when I have people like that front and center, the first Black woman to be on a board for certain organizations, the only Black woman to represent nationally. Right now, she chairs a conference of minority transportation officials that is nationwide, and it's a very impressive role. And for me, I like to be her paparazzi, or she flips it on me and she's my paparazzi. But what it does is it allows us to be advocates for each other, and we continue to build, that influential space for young girls and women, encouraging women to start their own businesses in engineering. I could say right now in the state of our country, we have an infrastructure bill for our infrastructure has been dilapidating for a long time. And for people like me, geeks in transportation and engineering, that means everything because it's so much opportunity. And when you know that's happening for the next 5, 10, 20 years, it's legacy building opportunities, right? So I have to, again, toot the horn for Tanya because she's been a champion for me and people like me here in the Midwest and now on a national platform. And it means a lot to have people that know you be your champion because you don't feel like, oh, it's the first Duana they come across. So, I speak so well, or, I'm so intelligent, or look what you've done. There are a lot of Duanas out there, right? And to have the opportunity to represent and meet with them and network with them and encourage them to continue in our, industry has always been very rewarding. And I'd be remiss if I didn't, while Tanya Adams is my personal in-person, champion that I like to talk about, you have the other one right behind you on the book, Michelle Obama, our former first lady. I'm proud to say graduated from the same high school, Whitney Young Magnet School in
Yeah.
Chicago. And so we have real life, influencers and champions that we can model ourselves after. And more importantly, help the world see what a Black woman represents. We can do anything,
Yeah.
is what I like to share. And just given the opportunity and the right platform. And as you said, sometimes it's creating that opportunity. So I'm fortunate to have strong, women in my life that have influenced me in ways that keep me striving for better.
Yeah, yeah, no, I love that. And
Yeah.
I heard you use a couple of words that I do want to, kind of dig into a little bit. So, champion number one,
Yes.
you noticed her as a champion, someone who you said you were in your uncertainty, and obviously she
Um,
created a space for you to be a little bit vulnerable, right? And her to help
mhm.
you create the roadmap that got you to where you are today, right? And so,
Absolutely.
can you
Yes.
talk a little bit about what some of those uncertainties were that you were
Yes.
feeling, and how Tanya really created that space for you?
Yeah, so I mentioned Bradley University, the college I chose for my undergraduate, and Tanya was actually a native of the town, Peoria, Illinois, where Bradley is located. So I think when you come from a city like Chicago, I'm born and raised. Tanya comes from that location there in Peoria. We know our people, we know our neighborhoods, and when we have opportunity to spread our wings and get into these other arenas, it's an opportunity you walk into a room, much like me in my first class. I'll share with you, Candace, in one of my classes at Bradley in engineering space, I was walking in a new semester. My professor told me I was in the wrong place before looking at the roster.
Mm,
Oh no, sir, Duana Smith, love now, but Smith at that time is on your sheet. Just take my seat and just proceed. Let you figure
mhm,
it out. And the good part of that story is he became one of my best mentors as the years went on. But to have that opportunity to show people what diversity looks like, you can't see me and judge what I'm here for, what I represent, or what I'm even thinking. So when we have an opportunity to just continue to break those ceilings, break those glass ceilings, break through doors that have been closed. It's always been uncertainty related to being the only one, whether I'm the only woman. Civil engineering has been a male dominated field forever. And I'm proud to say, it's changing over the last 5, 10 years, but there's still so many conferences I go to or panels that I'm on where I'm the only me. And
yeah,
so there's always an opportunity to encourage the people in that space that you need more of me. Diversity breeds excellence is what I like to share. Because with if we all look the same and talk the same and have the same experiences, we work together to solve a problem, the solutions are going to be pretty similar. But when you have a diverse group, you have people with experiences from around the world and from our own walk in life, we can put together engineering projects and come up with solutions that meet the needs of more than just the majority, if you will. So when we talk about opportunities to go places, be seen, I've been fortunate in my career to have opportunities to testify before Congress, to help pass legislation, to solve problems that I had opportunity to research and work on, and safety and other things. And then it's something that you can show the youth when you work with them to say, look what can happen. The work you do isn't just for a paycheck; it has meaning and it has impact and lasting impact. I think one of the most rewarding things about being a civil engineer is driving across a bridge I helped build, or driving through a community I helped improve their access to transit or their mobility services. So there's a lot of reward there, and when we have people walking along with us in the industry, there's opportunity to say, hey, did you know this was going on? No, I didn't. Let me get there. And when we show up and continue to have that presence, then you see the majority start to acquiesce as well to say, yeah, we need more of Duana because we like what she's bringing.
yeah, yeah. No, I love that. I love that. And I was listening to your clip because you won the Rosa Parks Award. I know you will expound on that a little bit, but you won
Yes.
a Rosa Parks Award for a group that you're in. I'm sure you'll tell us about that. But one of the things you said that stuck with me is that you had to learn how to speak up for yourself. And when I heard that, I said, that just takes an incredible amount of courage, right? Because when we
Oh,
look
yes.
at who I spoke about earlier, Shirley Chisholm, I mean, she was, not one of many, right? Like she was an example of what that courage looked like. And so obviously, there was probably a turning point for you, whether it was that moment that you were in a class and they were like, "What are you doing here?" And you could have just shrunk or went into child's pose and was like, "Okay, you know what? This is not going to be for me. I'm discouraged." But you had to really strike that courage nerve to be able to stand in the room, obviously alongside you having mentors and champions. There was something that probably struck a chord with you that said, "Hey, you know what? I'm gonna do something that has never been done." What was that moment where you just was like,
Yeah.
"I need to like
Thank you.
step
Thank you.
up and be courageous here"?
Yeah. I'm gonna take you back to grammar school, Candace, because I think college maybe I had a run or two, and I was a little more prepared in that uncertainty. But in grammar school, like many of our children, I excelled in math, I excelled in science, and then you're the smart kid and you finish your work early, and now you run in your mouth, you playing too much. So sometimes we get categorized, right? And I was fortunate to have teachers and administrators in my grammar school that saw my potential. And when I would have times where behavior might be an issue, somebody finally figured out she needs more to do.
Mhm.
And as they acknowledged my capabilities, I kind of had to grow in that as well. And I had a lot of scary opportunities, I will call them, that came in grammar school. And one example is I was good in math. I was a math brain. And going to a grammar school on the west side of Chicago, my administrators decided to put me into a calculus class at the University of Illinois at Chicago. So, being the only student in my seventh grade class at the time, they had a bus pick me up. I had to get on a bus with a driver I didn't know, just me by myself. He drove me somewhere. You get off the bus, you find your way around a college campus. Terrifying, absolutely terrifying, with a book big as my head at the time. And I walk into the room, and you got college students turning around and looking at me. Terrifying, absolutely terrifying. But I'm supposed to be here. I have a seat, I have a badge. I'm supposed to be here. So even when I wasn't vocal, my presence and my walk is what I relied on. And I reflect on that experience because it was one of the times where I fully realized my own potential. It was intimidating to go to a college class as a seventh grader, and then to excel and have the other students, work with me and acknowledge my potential was very rewarding. And I use that because, from the commute to the getting pulled out of class, coming back, the kids, kids aren't nice. Where you been? What you doing? You think you this. But to have the opportunity to explain to them, you can do it too. You should do ABC so you can go with me. So I had a lot of opportunities like that growing up on the west side of Chicago. We had our electrical company, Commonwealth Edison, would come to our school. I learned how to build city grids, and then you get awards and you didn't know you did something worthwhile until you find out, wow, no one's done this before. So I've been fortunate in that space to have those opportunities, but always terrifying. And what I've come to learn, Candace, is if your stomach is a little upset or you want a little, butterflyish, you're not doing anything worth doing, right? If we get so comfortable that everything feels, palatable, maybe I can push a little harder. And I think those experiences early on, where I had educators push me, and then having a school like Bradley to go to. It is a private university, not very large, which is what appealed to me because I felt like I needed attention. I don't want to come and get lost in the crowd. I wanted a school where I could be you know, a few students with a few professors and actually have them have time for me. So having that experience with a professor and him not recognize me coming in just because of the way I looked, it hurt my feelings, of course, right?
Yeah.
And you learn not to wear your feelings on your face. and, and I think you can relate definitely, as children, a lot of our culture, children are seen and not heard.
Mhm.
There is a turning point where you learn to be your own advocate.
Yeah.
And I would say college was definitely that time. Not related to professional. I was a cheerleader in grammar school and in high school, and it was one of the passions I had. When I got to college, I thought, oh, I can do this in college too. They told me I was too heavy. I weighed too much. You got to be kidding me, right? So you have those disappointments. You have, they want to be able to lift you and throw you and toss you. They wanted me to lose weight. No, that's not on my plan. So, I'll move on from that, right? And even in a disappointment, you can learn resilience because it's something I wanted. It didn't make or break me, but the opportunity to be disappointed. Did they say no because of the color of my skin? Did they say no because black girls are a little thicker than some of our counterparts? Whatever it was, I just chose to take that and move on from it.
Yeah.
And having those experience under my belt, it's like, man, next time, what would I say? What would I do? So
Mhm.
every situation is opportunity to learn and just kind of reflect with yourself. Did you like the way that played out? Is it something you would like to do different? And even going back and addressing it again later, as an opportunity. So one of the things, I'll close on this point is, have an opportunity to be a role model for younger, engineering students, high school students, or anyone having your own voice. No one is gonna be your own best cheerleader. You have to do that. Some people will support you. They will, be behind you when you do things. But to be that initiator, I hear you and your team talk about options. You do have options all the time, even as a
Mhm.
student. there's so many opportunities and resources available for you to find your way, for you to find excellence, for you to find opportunities to practice your skills and your, abilities. I've always had those opportunities, and in each space, whether I did the best I thought I could do or just okay and cut it, the idea is I completed that. It's a milestone behind me, and it's something that you can use to move forward. So I look at it all as building blocks.
Yes. Yes,
Yes.
absolutely. And I love how you talked about when you get those butterflies in your stomach, and that's your indicator that this is the work that I'm supposed to be doing.
Yes,
Uh,
yes, yes. I mean, sometimes our gut might tell us it's not, but
yeah.
oftentimes what I found is no, you're challenging yourself. You're on the cusp of something great.
Yeah.
So just keep pushing. Yeah.
Yeah, and those butterflies too, like that's a sign of discomfort, right?
Mm,
And a lot of times, because I don't consider us the norm, right?
that's
Like
right.
those of you who crossing over into engineering and being one of the only Black women in engineering, um, that's not normal. And sometimes
Right.
when those discomforts hit us, what happens most times for 98% of people who are in the comfortable space, they shrink up, right? Or
That's right.
I said earlier, go into child's pose. And it's really about, and I think your daughter, which you're modeling excellence as well for your children. You've got two daughters. I remember your daughter doing her graduation speech, and it was about at a young age
Yes.
being comfortable, being uncomfortable. And I'm sure that what you modeled for her really, it really inspired her to want to have such a powerful message with her graduating class. And so
Yes.
you get an opportunity, and you've got some phenomenal daughters. Um,
Thank you,
I,
love.
I want you to tell us a little bit about your kids a little bit, because I think what they're doing is a direct reflection of that example that you set for them, and all the things that you've talked about so far, where recalling your own experiences, and you having to step up and be courageous, you having to create space for other young ladies. When I think about influence, it's that indirect, but you've got that direct opportunity as well,
Yes.
where you
Yes.
are producing future queens. So tell us a little bit about like how you're seeing that show up. As you,
Oh, you're gonna give me permission to brag. I
yeah,
love it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I think it's important though, because certainly we being on stage and having these opportunities to influence broader, but sometimes we can be so focused on the broad picture, right, that
Yes.
what's right in front of us can get missed. And
So
I think
true.
you're creating such an incredible, you are modeling such an incredible example for your daughters, and I've seen and heard and personally witnessed how that's showing up, where I'm like, shoot, when I get older, I want to be like Chelsea and Nadia. So,
I feel that way every day. Yes.
yeah. So just tell us a little bit about like what are some of the biggest, I guess I'll say some of the biggest things that you've seen where, because I did this, I'm now seeing them do this, where they'll be able to carry on that legacy. I'd love to hear more about
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you so much. So, yes, you mentioned Nadia and Chelsea. Nadia is my oldest. Nadia is a 24-year-old student in a physical therapy doctorate program right now. Nadia finished University of Alabama and then came back to Illinois and was accepted to this physical therapy program. And she is 1 year from completing. And just to your point, I would say about my oldest being, she was with me the longest, of course. My girls have 7 year gap between them. Nadia, a little bit different in personality, but always so competent and always so achieving excellence. My mom teases me that they got it from me, but I like to think my girls are running circles around me. Is what I told people. You mentioned the graduation. Nadia was the eighth grade valedictorian in her grade school. And her sister Chelsea, 7 years later, was also valedictorian of that grammar school, her eighth grade class. And so, as Chelsea was giving her valedictorian speech, they invited Nadia to be the keynote speaker. So my daughter was a keynote speaker at the age of 21, and it's like, yeah, who gets to do that, right? But always lifting them up, and you make a great point. Indirect and direct influence. Sometimes I didn't realize when they were watching me, right? It was one time I can remember my youngest Chelsea goes, "Mom, you have a work voice and a family voice." She was observing when I would talk on the phone, and then around the house she's like, "Why are you using that work voice with me?" and, and I didn't know she was picking up on those things, but what she she has her own ear and her own eye for what goes on. But when I have an opportunity to be deliberate, I love to have my daughters practice leadership. Whether it's ordering the dinner when we go out, letting the hostess know how many in the party, and they're right up front. And so we would take those little opportunities in our walk in life to just empower them. Speak up, make the call. Go ahead, go to the booth, tell them this. And now my daughters tap me. Why didn't you just look for a salesperson? Well, did you call? Did you ask? I sent my principal an email. I complained about ABC. Will you support me? Absolutely, right or wrong, I'm here. Because they have that, and they're not afraid to initiate and speak up for themselves, and in ways that I try to be intentional. I've been fortunate to receive awards or recognition for some of the work I do. I bring my daughters to the event. My husband,
Yes.
my daughters are at the table. They get in the photos. They get to meet the people in the room and understand what I do, and how I come to receive the recognition that I have. So I applaud them in their space. The youngest, Chelsea, is a senior in high school right now. So we're in the process of receiving all of her college acceptances, and making decisions about where she's gonna go next. And what's I love to share right now is here in her district, she's a senior in high school, and they were threatening a teacher strike. So the
Mm.
students got together and had their own protest. And I was so proud of her because she didn't even tell me about it. I didn't know it was coming. She called me to let me know, well, we're on the street now. Everything's safe. The police are around. But AB,
Wow.
here's your, I'm giving me a sit rep. Okay, all right. Let me know how it goes. And then when it was time to go back in the building, just total honesty here, she
Mm.
called me back, sitting in her car in the parking lot, like, I'm afraid to go back in. I'm not sure. There's rumors they're gonna try to discipline us, or I don't know what's gonna happen. No, you're gonna put your backpack on. You're gonna go back in the building and finish your next couple periods or whatever it is,
Mm.
and tell them to call us if they have any questions. You know what I mean? Like, I explained the concept of good trouble, right? We're all learning about good trouble, and I had to ask her a question: would you have felt worse if you didn't participate, not knowing what any consequence may come? And she was like, "Oh no, I wanted to be there." Well, then, let's close that book, and we'll move forward from there. So I think the life they're living, our kids have experienced 9/11, tsunamis, things that we didn't know about when we were growing up. So I think just their own walk and the things that they've been exposed to, they have their own heart and passion for what they want to fix in the world, what they want to address. Nadia has been very deliberate. She wants to have a practice for physical therapy that focuses on women of color and some of our issues, around childbirth, and just understanding our health issues and wanting to focus there. Chelsea, as she's deciding what career to study, she's her passion is youth. She's like, I need to help these youth out here. Why everybody keep going to jail? Why are they going to go to college? Why we keep getting in trouble? And so her focus is looking to be human development. She wants to learn how the brain works, relationships, and is interested in a career in juvenile detention. So while I would have loved to have engineers follow me, I'm very proud at the way that they're able to look at the world and see how they can have a place in it. So,
Yeah.
thank you for the opportunity to brag, because I always say, whether my oldest is teaching me about nutrition, new mental, I'm sorry, health, that she's coming through, and exercises and ways to keep us, healthy and fit. I just love watching them grow. And like you said, queens, one day, they're gonna do it all. I tell them, the world is theirs.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. And it's so great that you're telling them that now, because I think they just need to hear more of that. It just even to
Absolutely.
hear Chelsea being so courage is one of my favorite words. It's not my word of the year, but it's one of my favorite words. But just being so courageous, to take a stand, right? Like to our point earlier around like I want to find my voice, and sometimes it takes women to get later in their lives and careers to start finding that voice. So I think because of the role model that you have been, even though it might have felt a little bit uncomfortable and she was a little bit nervous, she was able to use that example that you've shown her of finding her voice early and at
Yes,
16 in high school, right? So I think that's incredible. And I think the other thing that I was hearing that kind of stuck with me is, you know, sometimes it takes, again, years to find your purpose, and your purpose can change. But
that's
I think
right.
it's phenomenal when you are younger and you're so clear on your purpose, and it leaves space for you to have those uncomfortable moments and be able to redefine your purpose as you go throughout your journey in life. So I mean,
Absolutely.
I appreciate you sharing that story. I hope that when people go back and watch this, just hearing just that courageousness and just the thought process and thought leadership that you have in your home, that it resonates with how we show up in the world. and how we help young ladies to really just like define their own walk. It doesn't have to be I want to be in my mother's walk.
That's
I'm
right.
that's why she called you and asked you like, hey, like, what do you think about this, right? Like,
Yes,
I just think
yes,
it's like
yes.
she's defining her walk, and it would have been different if you were like, oh, Chelsea, I don't think that's good, but you gave her the space to define what was important to her and really get clear on what her purpose was, and I think that's phenomenal.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, Nadia is already in the world, and she doesn't live with us, but she gets to come home. Chelsea, it's like we're preparing her for the world. 6 months from now, love, I won't be with you to help you make that decision. So I love that you can take in the information, assess the situation, and decide if you want to have a place in it. I'm very proud of my girls. I could go on all day, and then they make me stronger. That whole concept of iron sharpens iron. It can happen with your children. We can learn from our children. They can help us grow, and we can, exceed together,
Yes, absolutely.
succeed together. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. And so another thing that I was thinking about too was, and I hear Michelle Obama talk about this, and even in my own journey with, what I get to share with others about my career and my life, it wasn't all successes. Like there were some pitfalls and there's been some hardships. But one thing that I really have learned over the last couple of years is that it's just not a task. It's not, just a mission to go out and pull up my seat to the table. It's my responsibility, right, to
Yes.
share. It's my responsibility to show up authentically. It's my responsibility to create. I got my Riley. It's my responsibility to show her that I can be vulnerable. And so, I can think of several points throughout my life where I started to realize more that it was a responsibility and not just a task. So I'm just curious, like, what was that turning point, that moment for you where you were like, you know what, this is bigger than me. This is bigger than
Oh, thank you.
becoming
Yes,
a quantum
yes.
engineer. This is bigger than me being, one of the only in my field, blazing trails. This is about the future generations. What was that moment for you when it clicked of like, I have to accelerate because I have a responsibility to future generations?
So I've had a number of those moments. So I'm going to share a more recent one. So here in Chicago, we have our first African American woman mayor that was elected back in 2016. And having an opportunity, I was chosen to chair a transportation transition committee for the mayor. And what that entailed was bringing together subject matter experts like myself across the region. We sit at a table and we hash out problems. But one of the best parts of that experience was the connections to the community. As you can imagine, a new mayor, the politics, Chicago is a very large metropolitan area. And so we brought together a lot of different neighborhoods. And while I chaired the committee, I wasn't the smartest person in the room, right? They chose me for many reasons. And one of them is I have a good track record in leadership and organization, and having the opportunity to work in the government space and choosing to move to consulting in the last few years. I was able to bring together a unique group of stakeholders.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the best parts of that experience was the youth that came to the table, right? We're in our professions, we've gone to college, we have our certifications and our licenses, but they walk and live in the everyday life. So a lot of times you come to the table and you have this grand presentation and you have all of your points, and then you'll have someone very pointedly ask a question that you just did not consider, but it's very real. Okay, time to pivot. Let's focus. Let's talk about that. So have an opportunity to have my career put me in different positions while I'm in that space and coming across different people that have different perspectives. That's where the responsibility comes in. We have youth watching, they're learning about how communities get funded, why you fill out a census report, because that affects how much money comes to your community, the school, the taxes that people pay, and how it supports your school. When you start to connect all these dots and you understand that the biggest stakeholder and champion for a community is the people that live there. So having opportunities like that to talk about what our city needs, what has worked well, what hasn't, and truly putting together a program and a plan for the new mayor that would entail future accomplishments, right? What has been troubling our region? What can we do next? And how can you put together a picture like that without talking to the youth? This is their city. Anything I do in my career for the next 10, 20 years, I'm going to retire, and these young people are going to continue to live and travel around our city. So when we talk about the livelihood and whatever user services we provide and who they accommodate, the youth is a big part of that picture. So I think that was one of the most impactful experiences to me, even watching those youth in their own space be leaders. We had opportunity as a culmination of that transition team to do a presentation, and each committee presented, the youth had very strong messages. And so, working with that group, I kept those connections and making sure when they get together, we get together. And when they put something together, we look at it. You know what I'm saying? Making them a part of the process, because they are, you represent your community. You understand how the system works, being money and projects and advocacy, and to encourage that, because, I see Maya Angelos in the neighborhood all the time, and they are little rock stars, and I just love encouraging that. And so I like to make myself available to the college level, grammar school, high school. I'm a resource, is what I tell the youth. Call me, ask me. You want to practice an interview? You want to, draft a resume? You want to just talk about how government works? You want to take a field trip and go someplace and look at a project recently built? I feel all those things are our responsibility, as we are almost, I've been in my career 30 years, maybe 5 to 10 more, we'll see. But to have opportunity to affect the next generation coming up behind us has been everything to me personally. That it's a lot of fun and I love it because, we can be honest, a lot of us as youth don't get that encouragement at home. We might not even get it on our block, right? But when you get out into the world, you learn new messages. I got to feed myself some different messages. People do want to hear what I have to say. What I have to contribute is valuable. And that's one of my favorite messages for the youth is there's no other you. You're the only you. So no one else can bring your perspective, right? No one else can bring your experience. And I like to encourage you to value that. And when you get in those spaces, when you can be in the room, when you can pull up your chair to the table, take your turn to speak. Don't just be an observer. One of the biggest fears in college and high school sometimes is asking a dumb question, right? But I think when you embrace that and you learn truly the question you asked, a lot of people had it, but not everyone had the courage to speak it up. And then when the answer comes out, now you get a little more participation, like, oh yeah, and then about that, you want to expound on it. So I've seen, young people thrive and graduate and have great careers, and I love to be that advocate for them and a resource to make sure that they know we're here for them. You do have a support system,
Yeah.
and that's been the most rewarding part of my career is working with the youth.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. A lot of thoughts came to my mind. I think the when you think about what you said about asking the dumb question, being afraid of that, or if you hadn't, taken an opportunity to work on influence in youth, what I don't like is to be left with the question of what if. When I think about my
Mm,
me thinking, what if I had not, what if I hadn't shared, what would that have, or what if I had shared, what would that have meant for the future of the young lady who was listening to me? If I
absolutely.
hadn't, taken the opportunity to share my pitfalls with those who worked on my team, I would have missed an opportunity to help them when they get to that place, right? When they get to
And
that,
that's so key.
they can draw
That's so key.
example. And so I think
Yeah.
when I think about that responsibility, it's like I don't want to be left with the what ifs. And I've left myself with plenty of what ifs. There were times
Oh, we all have.
had to
Hmm.
find my voice and right and be able to speak up. But when you start to exercise it and really get comfortable in that uncomfortable place, like we talked about, it makes you more courageous and it gives you more confidence to do more of it. And that's what I want to just continue to help, young women, but all those who cross my path. I feel
Absolutely.
because when I go to bed at night and I didn't, then that's when I get those butterflies and
That's right.
that headache.
I know what you're talking about. Yes. Yeah, yeah.
Yes. So I know we need to wrap up. This has been such a great, just a great chat, and I have like 1,000 more questions. Before I hop into it, though, you keep saying I've been in this field for 30 years, and I'm like, what you starting? I know you, but I know those who are. Every time somebody who's listening to this who doesn't know you, they're gonna be like, "What is she talking about?"
Yes, yes, I
But
know.
you look. I just want to take that opportunity to say you look amazing. And I
I
think
thank you
the
for that.
glow the
Yes.
glow that's coming in from all of the just what you're sharing with us today, it gives you a glow, and I think that's what we need to see as well as women who are happy with what they're doing, women who are sharing, and we can see that light, right? That light
That is an
in
excellent
them
point.
because of what they're doing. So you kept saying 30 years, and I'm just like, I know people are gonna be like, she lied.
What you said is so valuable, Candace. If I can just comment, when you
Yeah,
talk
for sure.
about, missteps or failures or, what if moments, I think those are the most important to share because I don't like when we, some youth are out here with an idea of perfection. right? No one is perfect. And the idea that you have these missteps or lessons, they were all lessons, they helped you learn better. And it's just a real transparent way of communicating, because failures is how you win as well. You get to learn lessons. And if you didn't try, that's where the failure comes in, right? You actually tried, you put your best foot forward, and there's a lesson to be learned there. So the idea that we're all a work in progress, right? I'm still working to be the best me is how I always look at it. So to encourage youth in that way, one mistake doesn't define you, right? And you mentioned something earlier, maybe I got my degree in X, but my passion is in Y. How do I marry those two to get the best value for me? Don't be afraid of that. We encourage that, because that's what your life is all about. Maybe you got an education to help seed whatever it is that you want to strive forward to, but it's just another, accomplishment in your life that you can build on. And I think we need those positive experiences to draw on. I'm a big person about messages that we feed ourselves.
Yeah.
And when you give yourself an opportunity to be in a new space, to speak up and see what the reaction is, or have a true impact on something. I was very honored and humbled to be selected for the mayor's committee. Had no idea who nominated me until it was over. And then you find out, wow, you thought so much of me. I didn't know you were in my network, and it's a blessing. And I think it builds courage, as you continue, because you need those moments to be very experiential as you move forward, so that yeah, I got this, I can do this, as scary as it might be.
Yeah, and you also said that, and Alicia, one of my business partners, she did a great podcast on emotional or the 80/20 activity. And one of the
Mm,
things that she said where I had to like pause is there's no such thing as equality, right? And when she said that, and then we started to talk more about it in the 5 minute career hack, then we started saying more of we're one of one. There's no other person like you. And I think that's why
that's
your
right.
work is so important. So you can show them that it doesn't necessarily have to be my path because
That's
you
right.
are, we're fearfully and wonderfully made, right? But you don't have to do it like everybody else. If you're comparing yourself daily to you, right? And you use these
I
examples
love that.
of influential women who have blazed trails for us and provided examples, then you now can you get more courage and confidence to do it your way and still have your voice and be an influence as well. So I love that you said that. I forgot to expound on that. And so
Yeah.
when I think about, just we were on a podcast probably we were on a podcast and we were explaining kind of our mission and our purpose. And one of the things that the young lady who was interviewing us said is she said, "Man, I think it's just really powerful that it's three black women working together and doing a phenomenal job in business." And
Absolutely.
it put a pause in us of like, you're right. Like we just thought about like we're collaborators, we're friends, but it does send out a very powerful message about what's capable when women are working together and helping others together. And I think your shirt, we were talking about that before we got in,
Yes.
models that very well. But we want to still make sure that we're just staying present and understanding how we can continue to do more of that in the future, right? Like we're setting the example today, but we want to be thinking 5 or 10 years down the line on how we continue to have this amazing influence by what we're modeling in our business. So I want you to imagine with us a little bit today, and so if you could describe the perfect world for women in the next 5 to 10 years, personally and professionally, what would that look like for you?
Oh, well, that's an amazing question. Thank you. And I just got to say, I'm definitely echoing your podcast host. Watching you three work together is very inspiring. And it's a great example, right? Whatever others have had experience with women of color, to see a team of excellence, and then giving you information you can use, you guys are having an incredible impact. So I just want to say that. Yeah, so I'll speak from engineering, as you said, from my industry, and then, in terms of Duana's vision of the future in a bigger scale. For engineering, I mentioned already, it was heavily male, in the early years of our country, in developing systems, transportation, vehicles, traffic signals. There's so many things that go back to an inventor that was a man. I would like to see, as we continue forward, we have champions in doing aviation, all modes of transportation. We have astronauts, we have women that are blazing trails in engineering and medical fields and software development. I believe we are on the cusp of a great future in terms of the money that's available to improve our infrastructure, in terms of the technology, where we have opportunity to go as our country is, one of one of excellence in terms of, development and research and development to get to some of the future technologies that we all still dream about. I was a kid that loved the Jetsons, flying cars and autonomous vehicles. My team, I get to dibble and dabble in all of those things. So in the future, I like to see more women at the table, not just working on the projects. You mentioned one of the organizations that I am a member of, Women in Transportation, and we have an opportunity annually to give awards. And I've been influencing our board to look more away from the CEOs and the VPs. They're already in a position, they've already reached a certain level. They don't get these things done and reach these milestones of completion without the project team. So I've been advocating that we bring the actual women and minorities that are working on the projects on the ground, that are actually delivering the work. Let's put them at the podium. Why do we need the CEO? Why do we need the executive vice president? Everyone knows who they are. Let's help, get exposure to some of the people that are doing the work, have the experience. And it's been a great experience because people are surprised, they're humbled, but they are, what we talked about before, they're encouraged to speak and be present. And I think that's the way it should be. So I would like to see our pay scale more equitable. It is across all industries, but engineering is one of those as well, where women still don't make as much as the men in our industry. And I think it is starting to turn, more women starting their own companies, more women being in a diversity space to encourage diversity within some of these other organizations that have been with us 50 to 100 years, and just needing to be more diverse in their selection of employees, how they implement their projects. And then from a leadership role, we have so we have so many women in leadership positions. We could go on all day, but the idea that they are available to you, it's not hard to reach out for a mentor or a mentee. A lot of people will be surprised to find out someone would love to mentor you. Being a mentor is so rewarding in both directions. You might have the title as the mentor, but you're going to learn as much from your mentee as they will learn from you. So having a network of, we talk about networks, tools, resources and people that are available to you, that want to talk to you and want to see you do well. I like to see those organizations continue to build and grow across our country, so that women know they have some place to go when they want to do more, they want to be more. There are examples, there are paths, there's a toolbox available. I definitely see that. And so just, I think we're very close to our first woman president. I see that in our future as well.
Yeah.
So I think, when we think about women in our families, some of the young girls in the military, we have a lot of young women around us that are doing phenomenal things. And I just want to see that continue, and they not be limited by what they look like, right? Or where they come from, but just because they have the ideas and the capabilities, and that's all that's being, considered when they get those opportunities, would be an ideal state for me.
Yeah. And I think to your point earlier, I love that, by the way. And to your point earlier of what our youth has been able to experience. I mean, a global pandemic, Barack Obama president, Kamala Harris going into the vice president role. They've experienced and seen so much change that I
Yes,
think that, and you just talked about, you like to see the youth being, having the courage and giving the space to speak up and it just not being top down. And I think we have such there's a really high chance for that. I think I'm always inspired every time I'm kind of in the middle of the Gen X and the millennial piece, but I'm always inspired at just how courageous our youth are. And when I think about what they have been able to experience already, I have no doubt that what your vision is, they'll be able to live that out. And because obviously the legacy is a little bit different that they're experiencing
that's right.
than what it was for us. So no, I think that's amazing. I appreciate you sharing that, and I'm sure there's some young women who want to be engineers. I hope that are watching this or just want to just be more present in their field or want to learn how to find their voice. I'm sure someone is going to watch this and really get inspired by what you shared today. So
We can pray for that. Absolutely.
yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for being coming on and being our guest today. I always love organic conversation with you. So this was a true pleasure for me, and I'm looking forward to taking some of the lessons that you shared today and just help continue to inspire what we're doing at 5 Minute Career Hack as well. So
Well,
uh,
thank you, my sister. I appreciate you and everything that you and your team are doing. 5 Minute Career Hack. You guys are going to be responsible for the success of so many.
mm,
And I'm just putting that out there. You guys are doing great work, and I appreciate the opportunity to participate.
we appreciate the responsibility too, definitely. All
All
right.
right.
Well, I will let you go. Thank you again for your time, and we'll be chatting soon, ma'am.
Looking forward to it. Thank you.